Hi, this is Mark from Skywagon University. We're going to be talking to Don Wolfe today. Don, thanks for letting us come and,
You're welcome.
and visit this fantastic hangar and his incredibly nice 79 180K. So we're just going to walk around it and look at some of its features and ask Don about some of the specifics that it has on it. It's a 79. The numbers are, it's 4,000 on its airframe. There's about 0 on its engine.
Yep.
And it's a North Point / P-Ponk 470-50. So it's got a kind of carbureted 520 in it and a big 3-blade on it. So it's kind of like a 183. Better than a 180,
right.
better than a 180, not quite a 185.
Exactly.
So 79s have wet wings. And the wet wing is 88 gallons in it.
That's correct.
And how many usable?
84.
84 usable. No bladders. And they only did it in the 180s in 79, 80, and 81. So everything before that is a bladdered plane. And you can tell that it's a wet wing plane because the rivets, we can probably do a close-up of it later, the rivets on the leading edge to this seam are Cherry Max, which you'd think this would be strange. But if they were bucked, the guy who did it would still be in there. So you have to use Cherry Max.
Yeah.
So there's no bladders. 185s in 79 were also wet wings. 80, 81 to 85, last year of production. The float-kitted 185s, they had bladders in them because they leaked on floats with all the flexing on the water.
Interesting.
And you had to pay extra bucks for that. It was like, hang on, Cessna, I don't want bladders, I want a wet wing. I've got a wet wing, but I want bladders. That's $900 extra. And they're like, well, it was free in 1977. Sorry.
So if they have 4 fuel caps on the top, is that the bladdered airplane?
That is a float-kitted bladdered plane.
Okay, because this one has 2.
Yeah,
Very
and they're inboard, exactly.
Yeah.
So Don, show us around it. How long have you owned it?
All right. I've owned the airplane for about 3 years now. Steve Devine had it here on the airport in Auburn, and I was drooling over it for years. And
did it look like this?
It did. Steve had this painted down in Lincoln, and when he offered it to me, I said, will you come down on the price? He says, no, I'll call the next guy. So I bought it.
Good tactic.
Anyway, very happy with the plane. Originally when I had it, it had a just a straight 0470U in it. And the first thing I did was an Aeroplanes STC, which spun the prop up from 2,400 RPM to 2,625. Different carburetor, different crossover tube, changed the governor setting.
What horsepower increases?
It went from 230 to 252.
Okay.
Now, Sean's airplane that we'll talk about in a little bit has that done, I believe, through Western Skyways. Same modification. He puts that plane on float, so he has 252 horsepower as well.
And this one now with the
yeah, they're saying around 270 estimated, and I changed the prop out, put the Mac 401 on, which I love. It's a great prop, very smooth. This is one of the last engines made by Stephen Knopp up there in Washington, and I love the P-Ponk motor. I had a 65 180H with a P-Ponk in it, and it runs like a turbine. And that's why I wanted to get this motor. I'm very happy with it. So North Point bought the STC, and they're still building them.
So this plane does not have a float kit. And the identifying features of it not having a float kit are this little seam here. If it had a float kit, it would have an angled triangle of metal right here. Plus, further down the fuselage, there would be here, there'd be a giant diamond patch of rivets that would follow down here underneath, and there'd be a couple of blanked off rivet holes here where the float attach points are. But the main thing, being a 79 180K, without a float kit, it has the small dorsal. The small dorsal fin is about 8 inches tall compared to the taller 18-inch dorsal fin on the K model 180s. And the big fin is on float-kitted 180s from 75 to 81. If it has it, you can do the Kenmore gross weight increase STC, which gives you 290 more pounds by riveting a postcard-sized bit of metal onto the front of the spar of the horizontal stabilizer. So because it's making it more like a 185's gross weight. Another thing is this panel is only on the 79 to 81 180s. It's the jack screw access panel. So if you see that, it's either been retrofitted or it's a later model plane. And this, people always wonder what that is. That is so that when you're flying along, the air goes in and creates positive pressure in the cabin so that other gases, like exhaust up front, won't be sucked into the cabin. You sometimes see them backwards. I've seen them backwards on float planes. And that's to stop the spray flying in there when they're on floats.
But it's still pressurized.
But does it pressurize? I don't know. Maybe they've got better door seals. But
Maybe
if it's
so.
the other way around, doesn't it suck?
Yeah, you would think so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Abrasion boots, that's just for rocks. It's not de-icing. And then, Don, tell me about the tail wheel. That's an upgrade.
Okay,
tail
landing
wheel.
gear works tail wheel, which is a 10-inch tail wheel, which is really great on grass runways, gravel runways, better flotation. And it actually lowers the nose, and you can see over the nose better than on the 8-inch tail wheel airplane.
And it's got a lock.
It does. This has a locking tail wheel on it. And you know where I've used that, Mark, is taxiing. Because if you have a long taxi out to a runway with a crosswind, you're constantly riding the brake to keep the thing straight. And so now here you go with a takeoff with a hot brake.
Do you have a...
So locking that tail wheel, it just tracks straight down the runway. I've never used it on takeoff and landing, although I wouldn't be afraid to. So it's a nice feature.
I heard from Joe Stansel, my mentor, hi Joe, that the lock on the 180s and 185, they thought that the 185s would shimmy at the higher gross weight, so they put the lock on it, thinking it would shimmy, and it didn't. So they didn't really need it. So now people barely use them, and you use it for exactly what it's for. Landing and taking it off, I find, is better without it.
Yeah.
Plus, the tail wheel doesn't touch the ground fairly late into my landing.
Exactly. It's that taxi and heating the brake up.
Some of my best 3 points are failed wheel landings.
So one of the cool things that I had done on this plane is the 3 light installation from Whalen, which is 2 nav lights and the one in the back, they're strobe and nav lights. It was like $1,400, but those things are so bright you can see them in the daylight. So
they'll never burn out.
Really nice, never burn out. Low electric load too.
And this view from here, you can see the top of the wings. If you see single gas caps inboard, it's either an early bladdered 65-gallon standard fueled pre-79 180, but if it's a wet wing plane, there's only 2 gas caps and they're inboard, and it's the 88-gallon wing. And then to confirm it by seeing the caps, you look underneath at the rivets like we talked earlier about.
You know, another nice thing, Mark, if you look at all those panels on top of the wing there, if you have a leak in there, they just drain the wing, pop those panels, and they can do a repair. You know, I don't know how they get that rubber bladder inside that little hole on top of the wing on a rubber bladdered airplane, but I don't know, there's 5 or 6 panels up there, you know, which are easy to get in there.
Have you had this leak?
No.
Yeah, see, if they're not worked and they're not on floats and they're not being abused, they never leak, like the 182s and the 206s. But a working 185 on amphibs, on rough water, will flex its wings enough to leak, and that's why Cessna put those bladders back in it. Another interesting tidbit of information is, when you see a bent exhaust pipe like that, that's a float plane exhaust pipe. And the thinking behind it is that if it's sticking straight out, the P factor of the air of the prop will go in to where the float attach points are, and then the sulfuric acid and the water of the floats and the mix will corrode it in there. So they put a kink in it so the P factor drives the exhaust under the center of the plane, and therefore not corroding your mounts. So that's the float-kitted exhaust on a non-float-kitted plane, and the other one is a non-float-kitted exhaust on a float-kitted plane. You guys should swap.
We should.
Not a standard thing by Cessna, but an excellent thing to have put in. Don, I bet you use these a lot.
Yes, I do use those a lot. And as a matter of fact, Mark, if you look closely right here on the side, you can see some ring marks where somebody pushed this airplane over, and that's to move it, and that's exactly why you have that handle. It is so handy, and you really don't want to be pushing on the tail, do you?
No, because this is a trimble tail.
So you can just get your leg into that and move this airplane either direction that you want to go. It's a nice feature.
Yeah, and they just stow when they're not in use, and wasps can live in them if you don't look after your plane.
There you go.
Ground service plug. 24 volts, that's another thing. 78 and newer is a 24 volt system. Then coming forward, nice features. We're going to go in the cockpit in a second, but just a little detail that makes a plane like this so nice is door stewards. It stops it opening too far and hitting the strat. It holds it so that you don't have the little click mechanism of the early planes or the thing here that always breaks. And then now we'll go into the interior and have a look at the cockpit. So here we are in the cockpit, which is incredibly impressive for a bush plane. And a lot of the electronics are beyond my aviation abilities. So Don, you better tell us what you've done in here, because it seems very unique.
Just going left to right, these are the Garmin G5 attitude indicator and HSI system. The new Garmin G3X, which is really cool because you can tune the radios, and transponder right there at the top interacts completely with the Garmin 650 over here. And above that, we have that new Garmin 500 autopilot, Mark, which is absolutely fantastic. I cannot believe how smooth that is. And all the modes that you're in show up over here. Previously, I had a Century 2000, and you'd push the button, and then, is it really in GPS mode? Well, over here, it will be white until it connects, and then it goes green. So you just look right up here, you know exactly what you have on that autopilot. And of course, this is the EDM 900 engine monitor, which is I love that deal.
And that replaces all Cessna's gauges.
It replaces all of it. And you know, that can be mounted this way vertically or horizontally. In my H model, I had it horizontally, and in that case, you have, you know, a manifold and an RPM. But I kind of like this vertically here because it worked better. And then, of course, ADS-B down here with the 435. I got rid of the old Cessna fuel gauges, and that is those are CIES digital senders, and of course only accurate when it's level flight.
But they're actually very accurate. When you've got 5 gallons a side, does it really have 5 gallons a side?
It should be. I mean, we calibrated it, and it you know, they obviously right there it's reading 5 gallons difference, but when they're the same, but that's because it's on the tail.
Yeah, exactly.
All right.
And this whole panel, did you have the whole metal panel itself all done at the same time?
It was all done at the same time, and you can see there on the right side we have a glove box for my wife, which she really likes now. So that's where all the engine gauges were and stuff like that were over there.
What I like about this is it kind of gets rid of the whole late style panel, 77 or newer, because they had the modern cluster on the lowered yokes. But look at this panel now. This is like something you'd find in a brand new 206.
It is, and you know, I don't feel like it's overdone. I mean, when I go fly it, it's just right. It does what I want to do. I like to fly under the hood just for the challenge of it and maintaining proficiency. But
and you had a 30-year career in the airlines, and you're used to having some high-tech stuff in there.
Yeah, so
it's slightly more advanced than your F100D.
A little more advanced than that, yeah. Even these are bigger than the attitude indicators I had in that.
Yeah, okay, excellent.
All right, and down here, a few different things in this airplane.
Rudder trim in a 180.
Yeah.
That's an option.
Yeah, which is really nice. Locking tail wheel. Okay, Mark, we're looking at the interior right now, and I have the Atlee Dodge seats here, which are really nice. We do Young Eagle flights over here. And these are up when I'm hauling my camping gear back here, but they come down really well. And in these tracks here, they can slide fore and aft. And I have a cushion here on the back for this, and I usually carry one in the back. And this actually came in really handy, Mark. One of our guys got sick on a trip, and we brought him home riding in that seat. And I still had all my camping gear in here with him in there. We have plugs in the back here on both sides for the headsets. If you look in the back there, you can see the extended baggage in this airplane, which is really nice, and I have a little cargo net over that. And frankly, there's a cargo net that goes right here too and hooks into the ceiling in the bottom. It matches that, but it has pockets in it. And it's really nice to have that there because it keeps everything in the back. I do strap it down back there, but it's still nice to have this extra net because you can hang things in there on it.
These seats are great because you've got them with you, but they're stowed, so you can have cargo, but you can use it. So if you leave the Cessna seats in your hangar and go camping, you never have got them with you, and we'll show you those in that other plane.
Yeah, that's absolutely true.
And up here, BAS tail cone handles in the back and BAS inertia reel harnesses in the front. So these will let you reach flaps and operate radios, but if you had to jerk them, they lock. Yeah. So that's a really good plus. Those are about $1,000 installed, and they bolt right to the spar. A quick question for the aficionados that have been watching and paying attention to these videos. This is a 65 180H, and there's something about that photograph. I mean, it's got some nice mods on it. There's a fairing on the exhaust. There's some cooling gills have been put on it. And it's got a surround on its air filter, which is like a 182 PQ or R air filter surround. That's not the question. What is wrong with that photograph of this plane? And I'm not going to tell you what it is, but answer in the comments below if you know what it is. So this is Skywagon's University, another video looking at a fantastic plane. And Don, thanks very much for letting us
You're welcome, Mark. It's been a pleasure.
If anybody else watching this has an exceptional version or an interesting or a classic or antique plane that they'd like to do like an owner interview with, just contact us because we're always looking for planes. And if you like these videos, click on the little subscribe button and click on the bell, and there'll be a lot more of them where this one came from. Thanks very much.